Today we are focusing in on some common errors that people make when executing punches that lead to injury. And injury prevention is key if you want to be involved in fight sports for a long time. We are having a summer sale at Strike Ready Combat. That means you get my offense course and my defense course, both regularly priced at around $300, now down to just $99. These courses are going to help your skill level bump so much, and they're the same training tactics that I use to win belts like this behind me. There's only a couple days left on this sale, so jump on it right now, link down below. Now, the nature of fight sports, any activity for that matter, but in particular fight sports, is injury prevention because we get injured. Not just from people hitting us, but also very often, and for me more so, from self-inflicted damage, pretty much. Not silly things, but things that are preventable. And throughout the years, I've learned how to take those common injuries that used to happen to me and make adjustments in my striking style or my striking technique to make sure that I'm not making these mistakes over and over and continuing to damage my body. And now look at me, 40 years old, less damaged than when I was in my 20s. So let's start off and talk about one of the more common injuries, and that is when you hyperextend your arm upon throwing a straight punch. Now, if you've done any jiu-jitsu or anything like that, you know the arm bends very well this way, but when we start going this direction, we end up in essentially an arm bar. But we can hurt our own ligaments by overthrowing, by getting that arm completely straight. And this sometimes happens even to me if I have a pad holder who has that pad up there and I go to throw and they, for some reason, they're like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, and I'm already in the middle of the shot. I have hyperextended the right arm in particular many times, probably because on the jab I'm a little bit more controlled and not aiming for as much boom, big power. But in terms of minimizing damage, you want to make sure that when you practice your shadow boxing and you don't have something to actually hit, you go, oh yeah, this is where I work, not extending completely, like 99% straight, and getting that prompt rechamber. Because if you overextend time and time and time again, it will not take long. We're talking months, if not less, until this just gives out, and every time you go to throw, you're gonna be hurt. And I've even had a couple of fight camps where I missed the pad, throwing across, and I did it a second and a third time while it was still damaged, and I basically went through the whole camp with this just on fire in here. And I had to make sure every time I threw, I stopped very, very short, so I wasn't getting to that extension point where I could be damaged. Like I said, move around, do your shadow boxing, sometimes for technique, slow, but sometimes getting that speed going. So you're practicing, again, that 99% extension, but then pulling it back before it goes completely locked out. This is an easy way to mitigate damage and make sure that you are not getting everything in here super aggravated. Now, another common injury that I have not had many times, but I've known many people who have struggled with it, is, let me grab a glove here, thumb injuries. And a thumb injury is generally not gonna come upon me throwing a straight punch, because normally on those, we are aiming with the knuckles. If I come and I hit here, it's unlikely that I'm gonna miss by, and this is gonna get caught, mostly because gloves are designed to prevent that. But upon throwing a hook, I have seen many people who constantly, I've even been hit with the thumb, and the person goes, oh no, not again. And they keep damaging the thumb because of the striking surface of their hand, because of the way they choose to throw. So let's make a correction here and help you understand how to prevent this, because having your thumb jammed is no fun. If you decide to throw with your thumb facing up, it's pretty darn safe. The likelihood of catching it is not zero, but very, very low. So I could just go, okay, I'm gonna throw all my hooks with my thumb facing up in the air, and I know that I've mitigated a big risk in terms of damage there. If you choose to throw more European style with the thumb down, it is more likely that if I extend a little too far, I'm gonna come and catch the thumb, as opposed to catching the knuckles. So what you have to be very wary of is understanding range. If I'm in tight, sure, go thumb down. If I'm more at distance, where I'm at that straight punch range, then I'm gonna have to really flip the hand over, as opposed to going like this, where there's a good chance I will come and land with the thumb. Thumb up to me means you're gonna be safe very often. Thumb towards you means it needs to be short range. If you wanna go longer, flip it a little further so that thumb is out of harm's way. That small adjustment has helped many people who I've trained with. They said, I'm having so much trouble. I tell them that. The feedback I get is that solved it. Thank you, Gabriel. Now, the final injury that we're going to talk about in terms of punching, and it's probably the most common injury that happens to people upon throwing arms, is a wrist injury. And this makes sense because many people don't keep their arm from here to here completely straight. They get these little turns sideways, or they drop like this, and they do something when you land with impact that is unideal, and it kind of folds the wrist very slightly. But even if you get that wrist super straight, there is still damage that can come. So we need to be very careful. One of the very first things that we should be recognizing is that is why we have wrist wraps. Wrap your hands. I've had times where I don't wrap my hands, and I very simply take some hockey tape and I'll do 2 or 3 loops just around there to secure the wrist. And my brother, he now has ongoing wrist pain from boxing, but as long as he takes tape and wraps around there, he's fine. It's got that extra support. And I've even had times where I've taken the tape, put it around my wrist 2 or 3 times around, and then wrap my hands with the actual proper gear. So it's up to you what you want to do, but making sure upon impact that this arm is completely straight, you're not getting that fold, something that's more common for beginners. And when you do hit something, it's in the middle of the glove. Because if I start hitting off to the side, even if my wrist is straight, it's still going to naturally start to twist it a little bit. If I catch in here, again, no good. Even on a hook, if I do something silly, like, okay, my hand's flat, but my elbow's too low. It's not usually too high, that's the common. It's usually that the elbow's too low, so I throw my hook. I'm like, okay, flat striking surface, look at me go, I'm doing a good job, but my elbow's down, easy way. Easy way to damage that wrist time and time again. So you want to check, make your corrections in your technique when you throw your straight punches. Make sure the striking surface is right in the middle of those 2 big knuckles. Make sure that the wrist is straight, lined up right behind the shoulder. When I throw my hooks, I make sure that that elbow is flared up and in line with the fist. That in itself has helped me so much because I used to have ongoing wrist pain. But I also, when I look back at my pad work, would note that my wrist or my elbow was always a little bit low. Now that I've leveled it out, pain is gone and I'm doing well. So you want to make sure that you sort these 3 things out so you do not have that damage, so that you are able to make sure you can train for as long as you want and not end up feeling broken in 5 or 10 years because of martial arts. Should do the opposite, in my opinion. So that's it, everybody. Let's call it there. Thank you for joining. I will see you back here soon for another video. And until then, as always, train hard.